quality gap.
Mhm.
Oh,
That's okay. She's recording you now.
it's okay. I don't mind that. But so we tried a whole bunch of measures to reduce income inequality. Increase taxes on the top 1%, reduce it on the middle class, increase the GIS. We increased the Canada Worker Benefit twice. We introduced the Canada Child Benefit, that's CCB. There's a whole bunch of things that we did. And while we have brought people out of poverty, we have not been successful in reducing income inequality. The other thing I'm seeing very, very clearly is that, and I give a lot of graduation speeches every single year, and I used to say to them, oh, everybody's going to say to you that you're not going to have any problems you're always going to have problems finding a job. And I said, don't you worry about it. You will find jobs, you'll be okay. I don't know. I don't think that we can rely on the same systems that I relied on to sort of be there to support me as we do moving forward. We're moving to far more into the digital age. We're moving into the knowledge economy. We have the automation and AI impacting not only blue collar jobs, manufacturing, but white collar jobs. Lawyers and accountants will also be impacted and are being impacted right now. And so every time I looked at it, I just kept on looking at our EI system. I thought it is not going to be able to provide the stability and the base that we need, whether you're a 24-year-old coming out of school, or whether you're a 40 or 45-year-old trying to transition, or even a 60-year-old who's still trying to work for a few years. We need a new model to support Canadians as we transition into this new world. So that's the core reason. And to me, this is just the beginning. I think there's a lot of things we need to change, just because a lot of our models were made for a different era and a different time.
Okay, that's great. So how did this go over at the Liberal Policy Convention? Have you got a lot of supporters there?
For sure. I would say, I said this is number one, although technically it's not really true. So there were two basic income motions that were brought that were in the top 5. So there was one that I created with a number of my colleagues that was supported by the Seniors Commission, as well as Ontario Liberals and BC Liberals. And then there was another one that was brought forward by the Youth Commission and supported by a number of other groups. And so that was one was number 2, one was number 5. But I said, if you put it together and we didn't split the vote, we would have been number 1+. So lots of support. And I'll also say, since I've introduced C273, I think over 30,000 letters have been sent to MPs to encourage them to support Bill 273.
Good. Oh, that's good. Including this group. We've sent a lot of letters. So, okay, clear up. This is my number one big question. UBI, GLBI, GBI. A lot of people use these interchangeably. Like some of the group here was on Zoom with Adam Vancouver, and he said, oh yeah, that bill, Julie's, is definitely UBI. So then I went back. I used to be a lawyer. I went back and I read it with a highlighter in my hand. And I thought, I don't see UBI here. I see study. So tell me what you see are the definitions of those 3, and what is your bill? Where does it slot in?
Okay, so as a private member, so typically it's a cabinet minister, right, of the governing party that's going to introduce legislation. But there is these unique opportunities to introduce these private members' bill, and my lucky number came up, and I decided this is what I wanted to introduce. So it's a backbencher introducing a bill into the House of Commons. So I can't attach any financial thing to it. Look, I do not define guaranteed basic income in my bill. I do not define it, and then I didn't define it very purposely. Because based on my discussions with people like Sheila Reguer and Evelyn Forget and Hugh Siegel, and just thought leaders who've been working on this for a long time, Ron Henkel from Manitoba, people have been around for a really long time. What I learned is people said we don't have to prove that a guaranteed basic income model exists, whether it is a floor, like Hugh Siegel's talking about, whether it's universal basic income, which many people are talking about, whether it's the MinCom method, which is the Manitoba model, whether it's the Ontario basic income pilot model. It could include any one of those. There's literally hundreds of cases around the world that prove that guaranteed basic income sort of works. What we don't have is large-scale implementation pilots about how is it that we can actually implement this from a, you know, a bigger perspective and for a longer perspective. So that's the reason my bill was written to enable implementation pilots between provinces and territories and our national government. And they get to define, they being the province, gets to define how they would like to define guaranteed basic income. And I did that purposely because I didn't want to set it so that I made that determination as backbencher Julie Dzerowicz. But I know that PEI, Yukon, and Newfoundland are all ready to chomp at the bit to do some sort of an implementation pilot on some sort of guaranteed basic income for their whole population. And they want the sort of federal government involved. So, and then how the dollars are split out, what programs are included, that all would be the negotiation between the province and or territory and the federal government.
Okay, so if Julie, because we've heard this PEI thing too from we've had other Zooms on this. So if PEI is ready to jump, why not jump with PEI and let them start a project with the federal government? Like, I guess our biggest issue has been this as a committee, and the faces you're seeing here are a bunch of people who've seen all the committee reports. We met with Hugh Siegel, who we call the grandfather of this, right? Kim Kate, yeah, I know, he's very cute. But I mean, we met with all these people, and basically we said there's been study after study that says, oh, this is great. Why do another study and not jump into PEI's offer? Because who's the premier out there? Oh, Dennis King. Dennis has offered to start up.
Well, you know, it's so funny. The more I talk to people, the more I'm like, oh, that's an NDP question. Look, it's not another. I hate to say it. It's not another study. Yeah. It's an implementation. All of you guys look like overachievers and wonderful people who've accomplished much in life. You'll know that it doesn't matter how big like you can have an idea about a program and decide this is the program we want to implement right now that is going to give basic income to everyone in PEI. And so what happens is the framework that I have sort of created in my bill would actually allow them to test out that implementation model. Because you know, there's a lot of things that don't quite go the way you think it's going to go. And so so that's why for me, it's important for them to test it on their whole population before to me, it would be great if we could get 2 or 3 of them going at the same time before we introduce the whole model into Canada. So anyways, that to me it's not another study. It does gather data, which is what every single sort of pilot should be doing. And it's good data. And it also asks to create sort of national standards. And based on what Sheila Vergere had suggested, it also gathers some of the best practices internationally, because there's been a lot of great programs in different parts of the world. So LA's doing one right now. We know that there was one in Finland, South Korea doing stuff. Like literally there's tons of pilots that are happening around the world, and they're all completely different in terms of how they're defining guaranteed basic income or universal basic income. They each have a different definition, and it's based on what they feel as the needs of their particular population. So can PEI right now call the Prime Minister and say, hey, Prime Minister, we want to do guaranteed basic income? For sure. But my bill would actually legislate the government to put into place a national act for basic income based on implementation pilots that they could negotiate between the provinces and territories and the federal government. Look, there's two ways we could do it. For me, the bill is very big on how is it that I actually elevate this discussion at the national level. How is it that I continue the unbelievable work of people like Art Eggleton and Hugh Siegel and Sheila Reguer and Evelyn Forget and all the unbelievable people who've been working for decades on this? You know, how do I continue sort of that work and to keep pushing it forward? And at some point, either the government is going to adopt it full stop in-house, and so I don't have to pass the bill, or I'm going to keep on pushing until I get enough people to actually approve it. And I'm trying to get approval from conservatives, NDP, Greens. So it's a way of mobilizing people. So I did this big session not this past weekend, but the weekend before, with artists in Saskatoon. God bless them. They're amazing. And they said, Julie, what can we do? And I said, number one thing you can do is, because most of the MPs in in Saskatchewan, in Alberta, and Manitoba are conservatives. And I said, please reach out to your MPs, tell them why it is important for them to continue to support this bill. So it's me continuing that work, and it's, stepping on the shoulders and growing my shoulders big enough so that, I could join forces with people like you so that we can continue to sort of, explain to people why this is really necessary. And it's hard for people to accept this. This is a new idea. Transitions are hard. Change is hard. So
yeah,
what I'm proposing is pretty radical.
We think it's just so fundamental. Anyway, what are the stumbling blocks? And if you look at the whole thing, is it that, like, for example, I would have thought you'd have gotten some cooperation from the NDP and the Greens, maybe not the Greens, I don't know. But so is it a political stumbling block, or like what are the huge stumbling blocks for this going forward?
So it's a great question. Look, sometimes people don't support a bill, not because they don't many people like it, but what happens is just political, that they don't want to support it. So what's a stumbling block? There's a number of them. One, and you'll start seeing my social media campaign is starting today. I have to dispel the myths of this is too expensive, it's going to make Canada broke. Two, it's going to stop people from working. Three, if you implement this program, you're going to eliminate my disability benefits or other benefits that I really count on. Those are my top three myths that I have to dispel. Okay. And so that's a key stumbling block. Two, I have talked to some NDP members, and to be honest, I feel like one or two of them have kind of indicated that there's an issue, like a constitutional issue with my bill. And I've talked to constitutional experts, and so I'll be consulting with a few other people so that I can maybe get a public, an independent sort of pronunciation. But I don't think that there is a constitutional issue with my bill. So sometimes people sort of create things and it doesn't really exist. But that's part of my job. My job is to sort of continue to go out to each of the members of whatever opposition party to try to convince them, to say to them they want to walk with me. And if there's some changes they want into the bill, then there's, a couple of opportunities. One is if I'm blessed to get it past second reading and it goes into committee, that's a good time to make some changes if people feel like we need to do that. Or two, for me, implementing like this framework, it's part of the reason you want to do implementation models is so that you can make adjustments as you go along. And that's what you need to do. It's such a fundamental change. Like, essentially what I'm saying is eliminate the foundation of our current social welfare system and put a new foundation in place. And that's called the guaranteed basic income model. That's what I'm saying. It's a pretty big change for people,
Yeah.
Because we're used to it. We're used to what we have, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. So those are the big things. It's convincing my colleagues, conservatives. Sometimes people don't want to be seen as supporting a liberal for some reason, and for me, I say we're all elected to support Canadians, and, sometimes some of these big ideas that come forward, should be supported across party lines. So I did put out, by the way, a statement that I supported Leah's M46 motion. I want to make sure I said that, because I didn't want people thinking, oh, well, you're asking her and the NDP to support, but you didn't support a motion. I did. I didn't love all aspects of it, but I was like, I believe in the spirit. We have the exact same objective and end goal. And so I had no problem supporting the motion. It didn't come for a proper vote. It was brought forward in terms of what's called unanimous consent. So that means after question period, someone reads the motion, and if anyone yells out no, which of course the Conservative did on this one, it basically fell. And so it's an impossible situation to kind of say yes to. And to be honest, in my opinion, it wasn't the best, and I think she used the best platform she was able to do based on the time that she has left before the end of June. So, that's what she was able to do. Mine is a bill. It's a piece of legislation. It actually holds the government. It would hold government to account, and it would send a very strong message to them if we could actually get it passed.
So Julie, let me ask you about that on the timing, because we all know this group of women you're speaking to this morning are all political junkies. I can say that. We don't do hard drugs, but we do politics nonstop. So we all know that there's all the drums beating about the election and blah, blah, blah. And our greatest fear is that your bill is going to die before anything happens. You've just had first reading. So what's the timing to get it actually passed?
Well, I think you're right. So if like all the powers that be in the world and the universe and all these positive vibes sort of like conspired in favor of making sure I have what I need, I'd only be able to get second reading, first hour, second hour, and then the vote by June 23rd. That's if everything conspired to work well in my favor.
And then Parliament is going to pause for the summer.
It'll rise. But look, no one knows how this pandemic is going to unfold. And I truly believe this. It doesn't matter what any party says. I really don't believe any political party wants an election during a COVID outbreak. I think that if there continues to be outbreaks in the fall, I personally don't see any type of an election happening. And in which case we would come back in, and then we would hopefully it would go to committee, and then it would come back for third reading. So look, okay, and let's say what's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is maybe I only get first hour, second reading by June 23rd. The House rises. Well, and say, people are working on a platform over the summer and we expect an election in the fall. Well, I'll be pushing to try to get something into the Liberal platform that sort of commits them to doing implementation pilots, which is what my bill was talking about. And then, anchoring it on the fact that, you had a number of groups at the Liberal convention make this a top priority for Liberals. So that would be my next move.
Okay, and then once it gets passed, like, where's the budget for this? Like, if it gets passed, then this would have to go into the budget, because I'm assuming there'd have to be money put to work, because you're not talking about doing original research. You're talking about really accumulating the research that's already happened all across Canada. Is that correct? Oh, and around the world, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's been implementation plans. Like, in terms of the funding mechanism or how we would actually fund it, it would have to be sort of a provincial, federal sort of agreement. And honestly, I don't know what that would take place. I mean, I would be merely speculating, and you were a lawyer, so I don't want to speculate too much. I'd be merely speculating. But
I did divorce law. I didn't do constitutional. But I guess the part I observing this, how do you ever, like, is there any way to make this a federal mandate that the provinces cannot bow out of? I just see certain provinces saying, if Ottawa thought it up, I'm not going.
It's funny you're saying that, Karen. So that we're trying to implement national childcare, right?
Mm-hmm. Which I'm 73, Julie. I've been waiting for 50 years.
Well, can I tell you, how difficult it is going to implement? And even though the federal government says we're stepping up with $30 billion for the next 5 years, and then we'll fund it to the tune of $8 billion afterwards every single year, how difficult that will be. So, like, the federal mandate is I mean, even having that federal mandate, it's still going to be climbing like Mount Kilimanjaro. You know what I mean? Like it is, even with us offering all this money, it's, you know, there's something up with our political system right now. And just so you know, it's not just in Canada. But, and you know how I talked to you about a lot of different models need to change? Wow. What I learned during COVID is the federal, provincial, like it doesn't matter how much money we give them, they could waste it and not use it properly.
Yeah.
And it's a real problem. So what I want is maximum transparency and accountability, because if any province is going to waste a Canadian taxpayer money, well, I just want everybody to see exactly what it is that they spent the money on. So there's a lot of changes that need to happen. So look, you know, my thing is, honestly, it's like the drop in a, you know, in a boiling thing, water, whatever, and then everything changes. It's just, there's going to be a moment where everything changes. Like national childcare, honestly, I'm on finance committee. We have the heads of unions coming and saying, thank God you finally put national childcare in. And we have the heads of corporations coming in and saying, thank God you're putting in, but you would have never expected that. Even I'd say dare 5 years ago, I'd say, and then all of a sudden, bloody well, it took 50 years, but drop. And just so you know, on this basic income, we do not have 50 years. So that's why I'm really like, I don't get discouraged. So I don't get discouraged if by June 23rd, I've only gotten first hour, you know, of second reading, then I'm going to be pushing really hard on the platform. And then if it doesn't get into the platform, believe me, like I'll, you know, if I'm blessed to be reelected, then I will continue this mantra and I will find some other ways for us to be getting this to the other side. So, and having all of you on board is going to be really helpful as well, because we get smarter every time we, you know, with every battle we fight. And, you know, we'll have to figure out how to get it over to the positive side. But and just so you know, my colleagues, whew, lots of support. And cabinet ministers, I mean, they won't come out and say it because I mean, unless they can figure out how to actually, in their minds, they're also dealing with the cost thing. And my thing to them is, you guys, we're not going to have everything figured out in advance. It's a different world. We're not going to have everything figured out in advance. We do have to, if you talk to Ron Henkel, you have to, the criteria for such a program really matters. You know, how you implement it really matters. How you're adjusting really matters. Monitoring the progress really matters. So, you know, all those things matters, but I'm still at the point of just trying to get, you know, get it over to the winning side. Hold on for a second.
Yep. Turn off the phone. There you go.
No, I still have a landline. Hey, Charles, do you want to give me another 5 minutes? Thank you so much. Bye.
Oh no, we have you for another half an hour. Don't get 5 minutes.
Oh, what? I thought I only had you in for half an hour.
No. Oh, Jesse led you astray. We got an hour. I told her an hour. Anyway, I'm only halfway through my questions, Julie. But anyway, listen, I have a brilliant question here that came from Joey, one of the members of our group. If you've got the Canada Health Act that can mandate principles across the country, and then the provinces have to adhere to that, can't we use that as well for guaranteed basic income?
I don't see why not. I mean, the fact that it's not in my bill, I don't see why we wouldn't want to have something like that. It sounds right. And you want the truth. Like, remember how I said there's 3 myths, and one of them is the, you know, you're going to take away my benefits, my disability benefits. There has to be a clear principle of you are better off. Like, we should not be having a guaranteed basic income program as a foundation of our social welfare system if it's not going to make a Canadian better off. So like that needs to be a fundamental principle. So definitely that is that's
okay
important.
So maybe you could think about that. So the other thing is Hugh Siegel and Kim Pate, when we were on Zoom with them, said this could all be done by budget. Like if the federal government, if you could get to Trudeau and Freeland and convince them to put it in a budget, that this could start earlier than, like, forget about doing the more studies, you know, just grab PEI, put it in a budget. What about that? Is there any move to put it in a budget later this year? I know we missed one already, so.
Well, there's the fall economic statement and there's always 2022. So Look, sure, I'm sure. I mean, it sounds very, very campaign. She was very upset that basic income wasn't put
Mhm.
into the budget 2021. So I just said to her and I said, look, it's not going to be in it. I had a feeling national childcare was going to be in. I didn't think basic income would be in. I think we have a lot more convincing to do. I think we need a lot more provinces to step up and explain why it is that they want it now. Um, and I think there needs to be a lot more public education, public will, which is why I'm doing my social media campaign, is because we got to get out there and convince people, and people talking to their members of parliament and elevating this as a national discussion is really important.
Okay, so that's a question for us too. Like, what do you want this group to do? We're good at writing letters. We have Kathy, who is on this call, has the queen of creating email lists of all the parliamentarians in Canada. So what would you like this group to do?
That's such a good question.
By the way, we've already written probably 3,000 letters. So
on
so,
on this, on Bill
yeah,
C2,
because we've blasted it out again and again and again. And I'll tell you, Nathaniel Erskine Smith is the best responder. Like, we have a couple of people who respond, but he seems to respond most to us. So
well, he's great. He's a very big supporter. He'll be one of my 2 key people speaking on my bill if I can ever get it into into second reading. It'll be Easter and him. Look, writing, it really does work, by the way, writing to MPs and writing to cabinet ministers as well. They really, really, like, I get a list every single week about how many letters did I get in, which issues were actually like, and there's a difference between a form letter and people personally writing in a personal note. So encourage people, even in that first paragraph, to write a personal note about why it is it's important to them. Again, 2 sentences enough, but for me, there's such a difference. Honestly, like I was looking at the stuff came in over the weekend. Like I have 1,000 letters, okay? Like about 300 about save the CNE, about 200 are around, the Palestine-Israeli situation. And then there's a bunch of local stuff. Like some of it has nothing to do with my level of government, but believe me, I notice the stuff that people personally write a couple of lines on. I think targeting some of the cabinet ministers really matters as well. Carla Qualtrough, I think, is very... Charles, apparently my meeting does not end at 10:30. So can you give me till 11:45? Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye,
Yes,
Charles.
no, Jesse did. Just I don't do past half-an-hour meetings just because my days are so crazy.
Oh, you don't? Oh,
No, I don't. So
promising.
that's why I'm just not. I'm sure that there were some wires crossed there, but that's okay. I'll give you till 11:45 if that's okay. Look, writing to cabinet ministers really matter. In my opinion, Carla Qualtrough, she's a minister of employment. She is unbelievably smart. And you know what? If there was anyone who knows what the limitations of our current DI system, it'd probably be her. I'm not quite sure whether she's on the guaranteed basic income side, but you know what? I would bet you that she's got an open mind. Minister Duclos, he's written about this. He's written about the need for basic income. He's to be an academic, and so I would be writing him. Krista Freeland, she wrote a whole book on income inequality. She understands more than anything what is happening in our world today, and she's our Minister of Finance. And so those would be 3 people that are just top of mind that I am like, if we can convince those 3, those are 3 fairly powerful voices. I'm sure if I spend a few more minutes, I could think of a few others, like Dave Lametti, our minister, our attorney general, I think is someone who through open discourse, not to me personally, but that I've heard him being very supportive. But that we have a lot of ministers who I think are if they're not overtly supportive, I think they'd be open to the idea. What else? Social media. I think that as you see some of my social media stuff, the things that appeal to you, please do retweet and sort of share with your members. And then help me to dispel some of these myths around the costs, around the, the fact it's going to stop people from working, and the sort of like we're going to be taking away people's benefits. Like it is very scary. That I did have a number of people from the disability community. They felt that the Ontario pilot did not serve them well, and they feel really scared about another guaranteed basic income model going into place. And I have a lot of compassion for that. Like, I think when people feel ignored around something, and then also when the pilot was canceled so abruptly, it actually really hurt people. It actually, like, people who had to be convinced that to trust government and a program, and then all of a sudden they were left high and dry. I mean, that's awful. And if anything, those are some of the lessons for me in any pilot. We have to make sure that we're incorporating that. If we're doing some sort of an implementation pilot, for some reason, insane reason, something might be canceled, that the people who are part of that pilot cannot, I mean, in the end, these are whole populations, right? It would be the whole of PI. It would be the whole of Newfoundland. It would be the whole of Yukon. So it's not just sort of a targeted group, which I like. I don't want, and that's the other thing I talk about, by the way. Yes, of course I want to help people in poverty, but this is about people who are at risk of falling into poverty, and it's about the middle class as well. Like, this is about providing stability to people and allow them to change in a world that is changing faster than ever before. So anyways,
I'm just looking at chat here. There's somebody's chatting at me. I'm looking at the question. So
and then can we take a picture before we all go? Because I want to take a picture with me, no makeup, and then beautiful grandmothers.
Well, I'll take a picture right now. How's that? I can send it to you. You look great.
That would be great.
and on my screen, you're very tiny, because I have this little tiny iPad. So everybody is just a little tiny. And Danielle is not even there. She's a cupboard.
She's a cupboard. Oh my goodness.
She's a cupboard. So I think those are all our questions. Julie, if you think of any other cabinet ministers we should target, and you're suggesting individual letters with a little couple of sentences of personal at the beginning, like we've been doing blasts of email blasts. So you're suggesting more targeted cabinet ministers and personal anecdote at the beginning about what it means to us. I mean, I think every woman on this call was appalled at what happened in Hamilton. And then of course we read all the stories in the Toronto Star about the woman who didn't have enough money for tuition and couldn't finish her course. And I mean, they were real live stories. So it was not good. Here I'm getting somebody else chatting. Turn on your videos on. Oh yeah, yeah. We did have Marcia. Marcia's not turning on her video.
But
Daniela has left. Marcia's the one who hasn't had a shower yet and refuses.
That's okay. Sometimes I go on a meeting and I go on a black screen and I just say, I'm not camera ready. And so I totally appreciate Martha and where she's at. So don't you worry.
That's good. All right. So are there any other piercing questions that I have failed to ask, group? Chat,
I'll tell you one more thing that I have an idea. Look, I think that radio programs and TV shows and all that, they're always looking for good content. And so you guys putting out a little press release and saying we're willing to sort of support a guaranteed basic income program. We support Bill C-273. Go on CBC, like write to the different shows, write to like Breakfast TV. I would love to have grandmothers for, guaranteed basic income go on TV. I don't need to be there. You guys being the advocates for that would make me really, really happy.
Well, Lorraine and Carol have been starring on certain TV shows already, and I think they're sick of it. But anyway, we're all kind of TV phobic. I think we're not really. Maybe Joey, you're looking very TV ready there. So anyway, any other questions anybody wants me to ask? Pop on the chat right now. And Julie, I just keep us. I am personally on your distribution list. So whenever you do a press release, I'm getting it, and I'll make sure the rest of the group gets it, and trust that we will keep working on this issue. We're fervent, and really we just like Freeland and Trudeau to drop it into the next budget and just go to the finish line and stop. And we do know that Christia has a lot of power in that. So she's the woman with the pen, right? She knows what she's writing.
We have to just tell them, stop pussyfooting around. Let's just get this done. That's what we want them to do.
Exactly. Listen, you took the words right out of my mouth. No pussyfooting. So, okay. Has anybody else got any other questions?
Have you already taken a picture, Karen?
Yes, I did.
Have you made us all look like folk models?
You all look fabulous, fabulous.
Are we all smiling in that?
I don't know. Okay, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna take another one.
Now. Do
Okay,
it.
everybody, 1, 2, 3, smile.
Everybody smile. Woohoo! Nice. Okay.
Okay,
Julie,
perfect. There we go. We're all smiling now.
I just
Yeah, I'll
want to
stay
thank
here,
you,
those two.
Julie, for all the hard work you've been doing. It's fantastic. We're so excited, and we're going to keep behind you for sure.
Well, that means
Yeah.
a lot. I'm going to make you guys sort of informal members of my board of directors for this, just because the minute, and just again, follow my social media stuff. We're starting to put out some really good stuff out there. I have a fabulous woman that I found who's just extra special helping me on this social media campaign, but I'm really just trying to get the word out. I'm trying to dispel the myths. I am determined that we are going to get to the other side. I don't ever lose faith. Like Kim Senator Kate, she's so funny. She often sort of gets discouraged. I'm like, don't get discouraged. I'm in government. For all of our flaws, we have just such a tremendous group of people who really want to create a better country. And while I don't agree with all of them on every single thing, very big hearts and really want to do good work. So I have a lot of confidence in my team. And to me, this is just part of my job to try to convince them. So anyways, thank you. Thanks for letting me chat with you. What a pleasure. And please have a great week, you guys.
Yeah, Julie. Thank you for giving us the extra 15 minutes.
Anytime, you guys. You guys look fabulous.
Tell Jesse next time I never do less than an hour. So
you guys take care. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, so everybody else stay on the call. All right. So Lorraine's going to unmute people.
You can all unmute yourselves.
Oh, unmute yourselves. There you go. Okay. All right.